2018 public hearing for the City of Tampa's Barrio Latino Commission to order. Welcome, everyone. I'm John Thompson, Chair of the Commission. If you are here to present a project, you will have limited time to make your presentation, so we suggest being thorough but concise. When coming to the microphone, you will need to identify yourself and your relationship to the project. The commissioners will not ask any questions during your presentation. Your project should be presented in the following order: site plan, elevations, architectural details, and wall sections. Staff presents staff report. We will then ask for public comment. Following your presentation, the commissioners will be asking questions in the same order as the presentation. Please state and spell your name clearly if you are here to speak for or against the project. Your time will be limited to 3 minutes, so take some time now to summarize your comments, because 3 minutes goes by very quickly. Following public comment, the applicant will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. The public hearing will then be closed. The only comments which will be allowed after the public hearing is closed will be in response to any questions from the commissioners. The commissioners will then discuss the case and will make their decision based on the City Ordinance, Chapter 27 of City Zoning Code, the design guidelines, the Secretary of Interior standards, design review comments, and the testimony given at the public hearing. The BLC can only act on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones. And we'll introduce commissioners. To my left, please.
Good morning, I'm Leaving Wynn.
Good morning, I'm Christopher Vella.
Good morning, I'm Jose Jalotz.
And we have with us today, with staff, Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Beverly Jusak, and legal Ernie Mueller.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ron Vila. I'm staff with Historic Preservation. Reflected on our agenda this morning are continuations, and there were none reflected. We have a special public hearing this morning, and I appreciate everybody's attendance. We lost our quorum earlier this month, so we have just one case that's reflected this morning. At this time, we're going to move down the agenda under conflicts of interest and ex parte communication. Mr. Mueller will address the board.
Good morning, Commissioners. This time I'd like to ask members of the Commission if they have had any ex parte communications regarding any of the matters coming before the Commission this morning. If you've had any verbal communications, please disclose the sum and substance of the communications, when and where the communications occurred and with whom they occurred. And if you have received any written communications, please disclose the nature of the communications and file it in the record. Looks like we've had no ex parte communications. I do want to take this time to note for the record that Commissioner Schiller is here, but he has recused himself for this matter. But the Commissioner is still here.
At this time, we're ready for the swearing. Everybody that wishes to testify, including staff, please stand up and raise your right hand.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide today is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. So the first case and the only case this morning is BLC 19-39 for the address of 2402 East 8th Avenue. Currently, it's a vacant parcel with a YC2 zoning classification. The request this morning is single-family residential with site improvements of approximately 1,886 square feet. The style of the structure is in the craftsman style. Just briefly to go through the photo presentation. This is Sanborn map. It's a very important tool that we use. Shows the setbacks of the historic fabric. It shows the construction type of the buildings. A yellow indicates frame construction. You have some blue shaded areas that indicate concrete block. The red indicates brick construction. You see the setbacks of some of the structures. The solid lines are the footprint of the building, and then the hatched-in lines are porches or porte-cocheres. So that's why we always start with a tool as the Sanborn map. Property in question is highlighted in the green shaded area. Does face 8th Avenue to the south. The cross street is 24th. Does have a alley that is an open alley, but not an improved alley. As part of this request, the alley will not come on board. They're just coming off the side to a parking pad. Currently on site, through urban renewal and other challenges, structures have been removed. So currently to the east, you have empty parcels. Then you come to a grouping of contributing structures that I'll show you photos of those. And then as you head to the west across 24th, you have these two historic structures are there that we'll use for reference for setbacks and elevation from grade. This is an aerial so you kind of get an understanding of the lay of the land as well. Once again, 8th Avenue, 24th Street, does have the alley that runs east-west behind it. There are no trees in question. You see a canopy here, but Natural Resources has already reviewed this site and they have no concerns of the site plan as presented. 8th Avenue in the background, 24th Street here, looking back into the property. As I turn around on 24th, you have this period contributing structure that has a wraparound porch. Now looking at the site from 8th Avenue, this is looking to the north. This is the subject site, 24th Street. And as you turn around, this is new construction that was reviewed and approved by this board, but has a different zoning classification. So this allows for more of an industrial flavor, where the zoning classification that is in front of you today is a YC2, which is more of a traditional single-family structure. As you work your way down 8th Avenue to the east, this is a budding empty parcel. This is looking down 24th to the north. Subject site is here. The historic reference that's coming in front of you today is this structure here, is that the agent has worked with our staff, and this is the model that he's using. So this will be incorporated into the presentation today. And this is 24th Street looking to the south as you cross 8th Avenue heading to 7th Avenue. Looking down 8th Avenue to the east, subject site is to the left. YC2 is over here, and then you have the different zoning classification that allows for the industrial. Looking down 8th Avenue to the west, which is back towards 22nd Street, this is 24th. And looking at some of the surrounding historic structures, property in question is here, 8th Avenue, 24th Street. Then you have these two structures, which are contributing in period. So I wanted you to get an understanding of the walkways as they come up, the setbacks, and then the elevation from grade. And this is on 8th Avenue. Property in question is over here. As I showed on the Sanborn, there's two remaining historic structures which are here. This is the grouping that I mentioned. And you see the setback and the three risers on both of these structures. So you get an understanding of the vicinity of the setbacks and the elevation from grade. At this time, I'll introduce Mr. Calhoun, which will address the board. Yes, sir.
Good morning. I'm Craig Calhoun, authorized agent for Evan Sheeler and soon to be his wife. We are going to be talking about 2404 East 8th that Ron had mentioned a little bit ago. I have a number of exhibits that he's going to help me put up. Starting with our site plan, can y'all see that? Need a little. Okay. Thank you. We were talking about elevations, and to the east, one of the houses that Ron had shown earlier, 2410 East 8th, I'm talking about the elevation of the sidewalk as compared to that finished floor elevation and the difference. It is 2.89 feet above the elevation of the sidewalk. On the other side, that sidewalk is at 12.48. Elevation is setting at 15.34, so we're 2.86 difference. We are exactly in the middle as far as the average. Sidewalk, finished floor elevation, we're 2.875 above that, so we're exactly on it. Showing the setback, this is the front porch of the house to the east, front porch of the house to the west, showing the line. Our front porch lines up exactly, and we're, believe it or not, exactly 10 feet, which meets the setback. So it lines up great. As far as our side setback, we're at 3 feet. We're honoring that. We're showing here the scored sidewalk from the existing sidewalk, same in the rear. We have all that. I think that pretty well covers the site plan.
Do you want to show this diagram?
May I hold on to it? I can't see it.
You can speak from over here.
We can see it on our monitors, so please.
See it?
We can see the diagram on our monitors.
Okay, all right, well, you're seeing the crown of the road, and I kind of covered these points a while ago, talking about the sidewalk, but crown of the road, sidewalk in front of our structure, proposed FFE, and then the difference, the 2.875 that I mentioned a few minutes ago. So we want to talk about the house that we used as our inspiration. Is that right? Okay. This is 9th and 24th on the corner. It's going to be the block north. You can see that it's stucco construction. You see it has the 3 risers as far as the elevation off the ground, gable venting. So we use that as our pattern. This is a little closer as far as a look at the pattern of the stucco. And I zoomed in even closer to where you can see that pattern. And our proposed pattern is that, which is almost identical. On the conditions, there is a point asked about fencing. There will be no fencing at this time. I showed earlier the scoring of the concrete to reflect the historic pattern. And I think I'll cover the window trim and that material when we look at our wall section. We're going to have a 30-year dimensional shingle. And as far as the exposed rafter tails, we
Hang on for a
are
second, please.
using.
We're going to ask that we can see on our monitors what you're showing there, so, because we can see it up there, but we'd like to get a little bit more detail in the monitors. We see the stucco pattern still from the Elmo, so. It's just a camera.
Does that fix it?
Oh, okay. That explains it. Sorry. Please continue.
I was talking about the trusses and the open tails. We're using a manufactured truss, and we're transitioning to a 2x6 here. We are using beadboard underneath the overhang. That beadboard will not just be on the overhang itself, but on the porch as well. So all of the underneath will be that. Again, the rafter tails. Now, the windows, there was some note about the fabric shutters on the comments. There will be none of that. We have the hurricane-rated impact windows. We're proposing to set that window mid-block and trim it out with 5/4 hardy. So the inset would be trimmed and then cased around the side of it, the top trimmed as well. We've also got a wood sill on the bottom. On the gable end, as on the side, we have 24-inch overhang. Again, we have the beadboard sheathing and a 2x6 outrigger. So I think it all ties in really nice. One of the things that I didn't point out over here that I really think is nice is between each rafter or each truss tail will be 2x6, what we refer to as bird blocking, an old term. And we'll have a 2-inch diameter vent drilled into each one of them. So it'll give it adequate ventilation. Now we're going to have gable venting on the house, but for functionality, we will have ridge venting to get the proper draw and function. Front elevation, we're showing the 2-foot overhang. We're 24 inches from grade. That would be 3 risers. We have the brick trim on the columns. This shows the wraparound porch. So we're inset here, come along here. We have a second inset, so it all breaks up as it comes down the side. This may show a little bit better, and we're coming across, breaking. So there's no straight lines involved on the sides. This would be looking at it from the corner of 8th and 24th. So 8th being here, 24th, so you're getting a view of what that porch looks like. Again, you see how it steps back and steps back again. What I'm showing here will be a vent that we'll have on the foundation. It is a stem wall foundation, but for appearances, we're going to make the look, the historic look with that vent. We're showing our colors, front door black, the trim, body blue, gives you a look at the shingle and the color of the drip edge. This would be the front door. This actually will be 3 lights, actually 1 single light with exterior dividers. This goes in the master to be able to give a little light. Again, hurricane strength glass, no shutters needed, and just the door off the utility. Again, the elevation showing the porch light, the underneath ceiling lights on the porch, hardware for the front door, and just a shot of a view of the window. I do have the window over here full size. Ron? I think so.
Commissioners, that completes his presentation. At this time, staff will comment on their staff report. Staff's findings of this application is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines for the plans that were submitted February 5th, 2019. We met many times on the site and in the office to get the situation of the placing of the structure appropriate. We looked at the environment there, and as presented this morning, I believe Mr. Calhoun satisfied the site issues that we had as far as the setback and elevation to be consistent with the surrounding area. That's the first, most important thing as you start developing a parcel that's empty. Moving forward, he addressed the majority of the bullet items that are on the staff report on page 3 and 4. I think additional information or discussion needs to take place as far as the stoops. He has a couple of stoops that have no wing walls or no railing. If that's the pleasure of the board, that's acceptable, but it's indicated on his drawing, so a little further discussion. And then the actual window itself. Originally on the plans that he brought forward, it showed that the window was a non-rated window, which means that it had to have the grommets, either the male or the female end, that we try to stay away from for new construction and definitely for historic structures as well. So this is a rated window. It's block construction. The window's set back, so it'll be received well. It won't be flush mounted to give the appearance of it just being a flat surface. So I believe additional information and discussion needs to take place on the window selection. Looking through the rest of the comments, I believe they were addressed, and I'll be here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. We have the opportunity for public comment. Is there anybody here to speak or for or against the project? Seeing none, we'll move to commissioners asking questions. We'll start on my left, please.
Could you remind me if there's a property to the north of your building?
Excuse me?
Is there a house or a property to the north of the site?
That we are building?
No, is there just one that's existing currently?
I'm not understanding the question, I'm sorry.
There's an alley that bisects this property, then there's
Yeah.
an alley that runs east and west, and then there's an empty parcel to the
Is there
north.
empty parcel to the north?
Yes, sir.
And so, do you have a north elevation or an elevation coming down on 24th towards 8th of the house?
That would actually be the rear elevation.
Right.
This would be the view coming south on 24.
All right. And then there's parking in front of that, right? That's where the driveway will be for the house?
Parking would be right here.
Yeah. And then the mechanical unit is gonna be located where on the property?
This would be on the east side, and there's a little jog in it. It'll tuck right there. We're still off, the 3 feet off of the property line here.
Great, I don't think I have any further questions.
Good morning. May I take a look at one of your sections, please?
Wall section?
Yeah, your wall sections. Okay, so I have a question on your foundation. So you're just looking to that from here. It looks like you're doing fill all the way up to the underside of a porous slab. Is that what you're?
Yes.
That's the intention. Okay, all right. And then there is that other section to the right of the wall. Are you proposing to have a true like gable end vent, or is it just going to be a kind of like a faux or something that's not operational?
It's not operational.
Okay, would you be able to see, I mean, would you actually have an opening, or would it just be boarded up on the backside, or how's that going to be presented? Because it looked like on your renderings you were showing something there, but I don't know if the intention is you're just going to drill or fasten a louver.
The intent was to fasten it,
Okay.
but then we framed out with the 5/4 just like the windows. So the frame out of it is intentionally just like the window, but it was just going to be, you know, for the historic look. It was not going to be functional.
Okay. And then for, I guess, there's no railings at all on that front part, right? So,
There's not, but we're less than 30 inches, so it's
Okay.
not a code requirement. If we had been 30 or greater, yes.
right. Is there going to be any fencing proposed around the mechanical unit, since that will still be visible from the street?
We haven't necessarily proposed fencing, but the plan would be to cover it in some way, whether, you'd like to have a fence or whether it's done with shrubbery, landscaping. But should be yes, just haven't got it on the plan.
Okay. And then just for my own knowledge, if I can take a look at your elevations, I just want to see what's happening more so like on the north side and then the the west facing side. Yeah.
Okay, this is going to be looking from the north,
Okay.
the
So
rear of the house.
Okay.
And then this is what you would see from the corner of 8th and 24th,
Okay.
showing the porch.
All right. So we're basically having stucco all the way from the underside of the roof down to grade. Is that what you're
Correct.
presenting? Okay. All right. Okay. I have no further questions. Thanks.
Two questions for you. Excuse me, two questions for you. While you have the elevation up, you just clarified for us that you're using fill up to the slab, yet your elevations are showing those decorative vents.
Yes.
So those are just purely decorative, they're not functional.
Purely decorative.
And, okay. Not sure if they're necessary, but that we can leave for discussion. Second question is in regards to your site plan. You show a stoop off of what appears to be the master bedroom on the east side.
Correct.
What is the material, and are you allowed to do a stoop like that within the 3-foot setback?
We're not in the setback.
Oh, you're not in the setback?
We're
Okay.
out of the setback.
Okay. What is the material of that?
Masonry.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks for your presentation this morning. I want to go talk about the window selection that you have. You said that would be trimmed out with the hardy board to the side.
Yes.
On the jambs of it. Is that a 1x6 or like a 5-inch profile that we would have around the windows?
The elevation shows 5/4 by 6. So the inset of the window will have the same 5/4, and then the face of it as well, 6-inch.
Okay, so we'll have the rafters and the surround for the window will be approximately the same scale. The rafters,
Yes,
the
yes,
rafters are
yeah,
2x6s.
The rafter tail,
Okay,
yes.
correct. And those are all depicted correctly in your elevations. It's hard to see from here, but a 2x6 on the rafter is pretty substantial, and the elevations for such a small house, square footage wise, don't seem to accurately depict the 2x6. Is that more correct there?
Well, this was taken from that.
Okay,
It
I got
should
you.
be the same,
Okay,
but
Um,
you actually have a 5 and 12 pitch.
right.
Is what you have.
Okay. And for the window that you selected, this Geldwin product, is there a more substantial style that's available for the window? I guess my point is that it's pretty thin, where historically those would have been a little bit thicker. If there is a different product, or if there is something that has a little bit more style to it, that would be
There isn't.
okay.
This, as far as this style of window, this is the maximum.
Okay. We've talked a little bit about the stoop. So the stoop coming out of the back, no railings, no nothing, just no
None
handrail.
proposed, again, less than 30 inches.
Right,
So-
but that's for a guard, and I'm wondering if you would have a handrail that would be associated with the steps.
No reason we couldn't, other than, wasn't not a requirement of code.
Sure. I would say that as we move forward, if between now and construction, should that change, we would want to have staff have input on what that might be. Venting, okay. I appreciate trying to replicate and fit into the neighborhood, but the venting is turning into applique here, and it's too much. And the reason why I say that is, let's start with the bottom. The vents on the foundation, you would really never vent a porch. You would typically vent the conditioned space of the house. So we have too many of those on the porch, and so all of the ones that you see across the front of that in that particular elevation, I think are inappropriate. The ones that you have at the house itself, which are now concealed by landscaping in your elevations or that rendering, would be more appropriate. So I think we need to pick one, and if I don't feel like you need to, provide those to be historically sensitive, but we're providing too many to where it's becoming a cartoon of something that you're losing the historic reference and the historic reason for them. I think the same thing can be said for the vents in the gable. In the back elevation of the house, there's at every ridge we seem to get one, where you would normally just have those at the highest points where the hot air can get out. So I think that we're using them too much and too often in inappropriate places for historic reference. So I think we just need to either get rid of them or reduce the number. I think that the vents that you're showing on the ridges there in that particular elevation, I think those are fine. You might not need them on the porch, but at the high points there. But as we get around the back of the house, I think we come up with a couple more that aren't really necessary.
So if I'm understanding, lose.
Yeah, like those lower ones. You could get rid of 3 of them and still be.
Probably get rid of that one. This one. This one is at the same elevation.
Those are appropriate in terms of where they would be. Now, we've already talked about the fact that they don't do anything, so, do you want them or not? And you've already acknowledged that you have the more interesting detail of the bird holes that are for the soffit vent. That's a more interesting architectural detail that you're actually doing something with. So, it's up to you on whether or not you want to include those or not. I mean, from kind of a curbside appeal, the venting that you're showing there is nice and breaking up the mass, but there's too much of it around the house, both in the roof line and the foundation. It just would be inappropriate.
So if I'm understanding, maybe lose this one and both of the ones on the back?
I think that it's up for discussion and how we want this is just my take on what you've presented, and
Okay.
it's not official or final, so it's for discussion. But the point is that by trying to introduce things that mimic things from the past, they sometimes get out of place, and I think, in my opinion, there's too many of them.
Okay.
So that the whole notion of the reference and the functionality is lost, or at least muddied. On the back side of the house where it steps out, there's a 8-inch jog between the resident, or I think there's 2 residents in the house, right?
Yes.
If you can show the site plan, or no, that plan will work just fine.
Are you talking about this little jog here?
Yes.
It was just to break up the wall. That's all it was just.
Okay. I think that if, in terms of the amount of break that you're getting on it and what it does to the roof line, it's a weird jog. It's not quite I mean, you do get a break, but the house is so, the house is not so big that you couldn't just have a whole straight wall that went that whole way. I mean, you could even take the portion to the south where the air handler is and lower, and just get 8 more inches of space inside the house, and it would still be equally, probably even more appropriate than what you're depicting there, because of the kind of the rhythm and the break that you get in that roof line there. That's really kind of awkward. And I think that a similar thing happens there on the backside with the shower, where you've got this piece of the building that's projecting out, and it's creating this other roof line that seems to fight against all the other stuff that you're doing. And again, it's an opportunity maybe to kind of bring that wall into you could take that north wall and the east wall and straighten them out, pick up a little bit more space, and have a more historically appropriate and scaled building, because it's doing a lot of things on those elevations that particular rendering doesn't show. Those are the places where those kinds of decisions catch.
Are you talking about pulling this back?
Right.
Yes. Yeah, I think that there's a lot going on those 2 elevations in terms of moving walls and stuff, and it's going to cost. I mean, in terms of making that piece, the jog is going to cost a lot more than just making it straight and picking up the extra square footage. So you get more house, you get something that's more sensitive, and it's easier to build, which is what they would have done in the past.
I understand.
And those are the things that catch my eye. So, those are my questions and comments. So I would say you have some time to rebut or discuss anything that you've heard the commissioners say.
I really don't disagree with you when it comes to the venting part. Most of the conversation was about the venting, and we can take the foundation vents off of it totally. We can take them off of the porch only and leave them on the other. It does give the look of a crawl space, which historic. Same thing with the gable vents. I put one in every gable just to give it the historic look, and I can pull them out of 2 just as easy. So I really don't have any issue with it. This part, if it is important to do that, it is. This is going to add some square footage, a little bit of cost, and even though you're correct in that it is expensive to make these jogs, the net will be more expensive picking up that. And we've tried to work historically and from a budget perspective. So if I don't have to expand both of those, I would like not to, but if I must, I must.
Thank you. So we will close the public hearing, and commissioners will discuss the case, and we'll figure out how to move it forward. So,
now that we're discussing, I would agree with the discussion on the vents. It is a bit much. Definitely remove the ones on the porch, and I believe we could reduce the ones on the gable. Whether they want to remove the ones around the rest of the house where the crawl space would be up to their discretion, I think. And other than that, with the discussions I do agree that there are some odd juts in the building, but because of budget considerations and the program that they want this personal residence to be a private residence, I think it's up to sort of their discretion as well.
So I think you kind of hit something on the floor plan side, and it's something I thought about earlier when I was looking at this case. I think there's a little bit complexity that we're dealing here. So I think the applicant did make some strides to have that historical references. But I do agree that a reduction of the gable vents would be great. I personally think if we just remove them at the porch area and keep the top one, and then also from the south facing and the north facing, I think we'll achieve that historic look. I think that I was hearing a little bit of cost issues with the floor plan. If it was my choice, I would even out the north facing floor plan. So we have that little niche there. I think your restroom that's occurring in the north facing. And I think if you were to straighten that out, you would not only not make the floor plan complex, but you would also not make your roof complex as well, the way how it terminates there. On just on the one going north. And I think that's where you can eliminate or simplify that look. And I do agree that we should just go ahead and remove the vents on the lower portion. Yeah, so you would maintain the top one there, sir, yes. The lower roof line, that would go away, and then the vents on the, correct, so that would be maintained, that's my thought. And then, right, so these are just my thoughts as a discussion, just want to clarify. And then on the lower level, I just agree that we can remove the vents there. One thing I'm a little concerned about is that I didn't see a brick vinyl. I might have missed it when I was reading through the paper here, but if there is a brick design or vinyl in terms of color, if it's going to be rusticated or straight, dimension, I think that'd be something that should be worked with like staff just to make sure that gets noted in there. And while I don't have as a discussion piece, don't have any issues with railing, I am concerned about the visibility of any mechanical equipment. So I think some landscape would be appropriate. I'm not thrilled with seeing a continuous stucco wall either. I don't have, just because of the way of the constructability of the house, I'm still kind of torn of how I would deal with that. But right now, if there is some landscape treatment just to cause that type of break or base, that would be, I think, something appropriate given the mix of styles that we're seeing in the neighborhood between the craftsman and your casitas, and also like with the industrial architecture that's occurring around.
Okay, I'm in agreement too, but a couple just things to point out. In terms of the venting, I would agree. I don't think think we could probably eliminate all of the foundation venting. However, to your point, with new construction within a historic district, what you're often trying to do is not slavishly copy. You want things that are functional. But there is something odd about a stucco facade going all the way down to the ground. I'm curious if maybe the solution would be just a really simple horizontal scoring that references the elevation of the porch and just have that continue all around the house to kind of break that up. There may be landscaping which would further break it up, but then at least architecturally there's a datum line that kind of establishes where the vent would be. That's a suggestion. Secondly, in terms of the roof vents, I agree to minimize them. But more importantly, oftentimes you see new construction, they're literally an applique, something that's sort of like just placed on the surface. Historically, these would have been detailed just like windows because they were functional. So I'd like to see, when we do decide on the final placement of them, if they could be detailed as a window to give them the proper depth and make them more historically accurate and reference the other apertures in the home. And perhaps that's what you
They are trimmed identical to the window.
Yeah, but are they recessed, like in the same plane as the window would be? And your section through a window, recesses the window. Yeah. See, I think that would be more effective in terms of trying to pick up on the character of why there would be an event there. So that would be my suggestion. And then the final comment would be the front door selection. It doesn't really seem to reflect the kind of doors that are you would normally see on a residential construction. I think the one you're proposing for the side with a light on top would be more historically accurate. So I don't know if other commissioners agree with it, but the two-panel front door just doesn't seem to be sort of
Right.
the right scale or the right makeup of what these craftsman-style houses would have had.
And I think on the drawings, it was shown, was like a 5 or 3-panel wood or something?
Two-panel.
2-panel.
Yeah.
So maybe like what you're talking about is maybe like kind of like a half light or
Well,
like a
they show a
2/3.
side door
Okay.
in the master bedroom that does have a light on top. So
Okay.
even that would be.
So kind of have that consistence between maybe as an idea or a thought is you have 2 of those doors instead of just one that's completely solid. Okay.
Well, I think that we've had some good conversation about the vents and I understand the applicant's, desire to maximize the project and not incur additional cost while doing so. I'm sensitive to that as well. We don't want to burden you. But I think that we appreciate you coming to the special hearing, and we appreciate the presentation. So I'd like to see if we can turn it over for a motion that will allow us to capture our thoughts here, unless any further discussion.
I think right now the only thing is, as a discussion piece, do we want to straighten out the north-facing elevation in terms of the floor plan? That was something I felt that could be done, and we leave the east-facing the way how it's presented. And I think, do we want to say that we're keeping to the gable vents, like the highest ones, or I'm just trying to get some direction that we can provide as a motion, so the applicant can understand.
Are you
Yeah.
considering a preliminary motion? Because, as far as I see it, most of the changes that we're talking about probably could be dealt with staff review.
Right.
So if that's the case, I think we do want to be more specific in terms of what we're looking at.
So like a final with conditions is what we would go for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it can go in that direction. I think there was a lot of effort put into bringing it to that craftsman style look. So we, if we decide to go in that direction, and we will state these conditions as
Sure.
something to work with staff then, as a final. Okay.
Yeah, and my notes would indicate that we would want them to, if we were going to consider a final, I would say that the conditions would be that they work with staff to minimize or reduce the size of the roof vents and provide a more historically accurate detailing for those. Work with staff to eliminate the foundation venting, but provide some kind of break and scale architecturally to reference the historic character of the neighborhood. Consider an alternative front door, and also then to simplify architecturally the north elevation.
Well, that would seem, if we direct them in the final to simplify the north elevation, we're requiring them to change the floor plan.
And then you think you want to have it come back? Then?
No, I'm just saying, I don't know that we have that.
Okay.
I don't know that we can, there are ways that you can build that and make it appropriate. It stands out kind of funny. It's on the back side of the building.
Looks like an appendage.
Yeah, I mean, you could put a little shower window that could help break up the facade, if that's going to be the floor plan. There's no reason why it has to be a blank wall. in that particular spot.
Well, we could just say that they work with staff to review the north elevation per the comments at the public hearing.
Okay.
I mean, or we could do preliminary and, see it again. It's
I don't get the sense that we need to see.
Commissioners,
I don't either.
I think that the project is probably more appropriately reviewed as a final, given
Agreed. Yeah.
the detailing and the
Yeah.
caseload. I think if you're interested in exploring, having one single gable in the rear that encompasses the shower area and the other areas, you may want to just ask the applicant if he's amenable to that as a condition and then move forward in that way.
Okay, well, let's bring the applicant back up and ask that particular question about the abilities and willingness to, we've talked about straightening out some facades here and there. You've said that you'd do it if you had to, but prefer not to. So if you've heard the conversations, is there ways that you feel like you can address those issues with staff and move the project forward?
I think so. I mean, a lot of conversation about both foundation and gable venting, obviously easy,
Right.
whatever we need to do. I'm not clear here, but I'm sure we can work it out with staff if it's agreeable with everybody.
Can you put the elevation up for that facade so we can discuss a little bit? Do I need to open the public hearing for this, or is he being responsive to our questions?
Yes, I think you should have a motion to reopen the public hearing.
Okay.
Motion to reopen the public hearing?
second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're open. So there on the north facade, you've got a number of different things that are happening there. We've got some blank walls. We've got some the shower portion that's projecting out, and there's what's happening on that back wall. I think that can be solved with perhaps some further articulation, removing some of the venting that we were talking about, and acknowledging some of the other openings that might go in there. At the shower, you might have a light, as well as on the what's on the other portion of that building to the right.
It's a kitchen.
That's the
Kitchen.
kitchen.
You got a kitchen right inside there with wall cabinets. That's
Okay.
why there's not a window.
So we're on the other elevation. We're seeing the window at the sink.
Here,
Yes. Yes.
here's your window over your sink. This wall right here is the wall that you're not seeing a window on.
Right.
We have cabinetry, running.
Understood. Okay, and then we have that door that's coming out of that facade. Okay. Well, I think that we can, you've understood what our concerns are on those, and I think that we can let you work with staff on those particular facades to iron it out by getting some of the venting removed and articulating that back facade a little bit differently. Okay, so we will close.
Well, the only thing I'll add here is I know we have the agent and designer of this project, but we also have the owner, Mr. Evan Schiller, who we want to get from him whether he's open to the conditions, making sure we have the proper person that's authorized to be good with the conditions.
Yes, I'm open to the approval board
Okay,
conditions.
thank you. Okay, so we will close back the public hearing, close it for commissioners, and we can, I think, entertain a motion.
Okay.
Just a quick discussion before the motion, in terms of what I suggested about detailing the sort of the base of the building with a score, is that proper? Is that something we can staff?
I think we'll leave it as an option. The other thing
Okay.
I'd like to add to the list is just for the brick, for just making sure the staff is clear as to what is gonna be used for this brick on this project. So I'll be happy to present a motion. Make sure I got the right one here. I'm presenting a motion for final approval with conditions. Move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in BLC 19-39 for the property located at 2402 East 8th Avenue. Because based upon the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City Design Guidelines, of the City of Tampa for the following reasons. The project does reflects the architectural conditions around the property. The proposal also meets the setbacks and also the relationship between the building floor height and the crown of the road. It also meets staff conditions as presented today. However, we do have some additional conditions that we would like for staff to work with the applicant on this project. That is to minimize the use of venting at the base of the house. That is to minimize the roof vents that are occurring on all the facades. That is to look at options to break or provide some style break between the upper portions of the facade and the base facade of all elevations, excluding the porch area. We would like the applicant to work with staff in regards to the front door to have some consistency, whether that might be a light or something that reflects the more historic qualities of what is needed. We would like for the applicant to work with staff on brick style and design and color. And also to simplify the north elevation, for staff to work with the applicant to simplify the north elevation. And I think that's what I have on my list here. Okay, I have a second.
So we have a motion. Any further discussion? I think that for the motion in relative to the vents, if we are to keep the venting at the gable ends, we should incorporate the detailing depth that was discussed so that we aren't just applying vents to the walls, but they sit in relationship to the wall as the window does. So that'll be for the applicant to work with staff on. That's a clarification.
Okay,
No, I'm just adding it to
Okay.
the record. Any further discussion? We need a second.
Second.
We have a motion with conditions, a second. Does the applicant and owner agent agree with the conditions attached to the final?
We do.
Okay. We have agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, we have just one more order of business. I'm going to ask Commissioner Schiller to assume his seat on the dais for a moment. The Barrio Latino Commission enjoys a seat, ex officio seat on the Ybor City Development Corporation Board. That seat was previously held by Rich Simmons, who no longer serves on the commission because of term limit. Your chair, John Thompson, has agreed to assume that position. Normal course of action would be to affirm that nomination by a vote. It is a 2-year commitment, which he has made, and then he would represent the Barrio during those monthly meetings. So if that's agreeable to the board, if we could just have a motion to affirm that nomination to that YCDC board position.
You just second it, or just
We get-
confirm?
Somebody has to make one first.
So moved.
Oh, yeah, so moved.
So moved.
I'll make the motion. I'll make a motion. I need to do something here this morning. I'll make a motion that John Thompson represent the Barrio Latino Commission on the YCDC board for the 2-year term upcoming.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Look
you,
forward to serving.
Commissioner Thompson, for volunteering to do that. That concludes our agenda.
Thank you.